If you're visiting with us, let me tell you that each month we take on a new topic for the whole month. We just finished a month talking about prayer, and this month we're talking about creating together as a way of experiencing a sense of community and holiness. And every November we have just the event. You heard Reverend Joyce speak about it, I'm sure. We have an art show created by our own community, and some 200 pieces of art, sometimes children's art, sometimes celebrated professionals, photography, all kinds of art. And this coming weekend on Friday at 6 p.m. is the artist's reception, where you can get to look at the art and meet the artist. And sometimes I'm in that reception and I think I'm in the wrong city because it feels almost like New York or something. It's so beautifully done. And it's the sort of thing you can bring your friends to without worrying about them being overwhelmed with religious ideas. And you can also bring them during the 2 weeks following the reception, because we're going to leave it up so that people can see. And the whole event is free. There's no charge. I like to let people know that there are many items, many events at the center that you can come to and experience spiritual community at no cost to you whatsoever. And there's a great feature at this art show. There's a silent auction, which is a wonderful way for you to take something beautiful to your home and at the same time support the center, because the artists donate pieces and they're out there for the whole 2 weeks, and you can get to take something home with you, and that's wonderful. But in terms of that song, Shining Through Me, that's so important as we explore this creativity, because when you go to the art show, at least this is true in my experience, what happens with art is it reacquaints me with that light that is creation that's shining through me. Art has that ability to kind of nudge me out of a stuck place, open the way I see the world. It can even cause me to believe something different about my experience, art and poetry and dance, and that's really important. So go to the art show and enjoy it, and let the experience help you to explore that part in you where creation is always busy, where it's shining through you all the time. Not only to make artworks, but to make life in an artful way. That's what we're all about this month. In this month, our featured or recommended book is The Creative Life by Eric Butterworth, and I was enjoying it so much. Let me just read to you what Maya Angelou says about this book on the cover. The Creative Life, this book, arrived the very day that I needed it. Eric Butterworth, the author, arrived in my life the very year I needed him. He has been, is now, and shall forever be my teacher. Maya Angelou. Isn't that something? The book is filled up with great ideas to help you and I reacquaint with that beautiful energy of creation within us. And one of them that struck me was this idea of the internet, in which the author says, almost anybody these days has access to the internet. Internet access is just available almost anywhere. And when a person does access the internet, they literally have at their fingertips the most massive amount of information of every kind. And he's inviting us to think of the Creator in a similar way, this immense amount of creative energy, of love, of light, say that anybody can access. In fact, you can't help but access it, because that's where you are. You're in it. And it's what shines through us, unless we have a block. Goodness me. We'll talk about those today. And he invites us to consider this idea, that light that is shining out through us. The world is hungry for it. Hungry for our creative genius. Not somebody else's, huh? Yours. Wow. About 20 years ago, I was in Paris at the Louvre, the art museum there. Has anybody been there? Oh my God, isn't that something? Miles of art. You can't do it in one visit. And I just remember walking through the corridors. It's like after a while, overwhelmed. And I was getting ready to leave because I just knew I had to come back to be able to take it all in. And then I came across this one corner in the museum where art students were gathering, and they were sitting back against the wall and on cushions with their sketch pads, and they were copying meticulously the great masters as a way of learning what that was all about. And I sat there and I watched them for a while, and I thought, isn't that wonderful how much we can learn through observing role models? Just by mimicking each other when we are doing something successful, somebody mimics that, we can take in the wealth of that skill just by trying it out for ourselves. But in the end, we can only go so far replicating another person's life. And we can never be them. We can never be better than them. And we can never be worse than them. Doesn't work like that. Take, for example, in art, copies, prints, replicas. They're great, they're wonderful, but what's priceless? What's the one that everybody wants? The original. Desired above all else. So if you're busy copying, what's left here? How will the world have access to the original? In the beginning, we may learn by copying each other. Certainly, that's how our children learn. And thank heavens we have that capacity to look at each other and learn from that. And I was thinking about that last month when we were talking about learning new ways to pray and how valuable that is to copy other people's prayers in the beginning as we learn to take it in. I mean, just repeating word for word another person's prayer is a wonderful way of taking it into your being, and yet to truly unleash your own prayer potential. There comes a point, there's a line that you got to cross where you have to find your own voice, and you have to abandon every teacher and every alliance and every style and every flavor and every rule, and you have to do, how they say, you have to come from your own heart. And the thing is, just like art, not everybody may like it. But it will be yours. And not everybody may like it. Don't let that block you. Oh, the things that we let block us. Nobody will like me. I don't fit in. I'll upset some. You've got yours, huh? And the things that I let block me, that I get stuck in on the spiritual path, I realize are very similar to the sort of things that artists experience when they get blocked. You've heard of writer's block and artist block, that place where nothing is moving. We have that in life. It happens in all kinds of areas. So I thought to myself, if they get blocked and they get out of the block, if they get themselves unstuck, what if I copy what the masters do? And see if it'll work in my life, Can I do the same thing and get unstuck in my life? For example, one of the places I find that I get stuck is this place called Getting Started. Yes? Yeah. Well, whether that's producing art, or whether that's being a parent, or whether that's getting out of a bad mood, or whether that's making that necessary change in relationship, or starting that, it's that first step. And often there are very solid, serious reasons. It could be a matter of time. It could be family obligations. It could be lack of knowledge, and so on. And so I look at what do artists do, and can I do a little bit of what they do? And here's what some artists recommend to get unstuck. So I look at what do artists do, and can I do a little bit of what they do? And here's what some artists recommend to get unstuck. Start anyway. Ready or not. Wherever you are, with whatever you've got, begin. And start somewhere with a small step. And as you take that small step, notice to see how things move around you. Something will move. It's beautiful how it happens. Something moves to take you to the next level. But start with that small step in such a way that the small step is, well, it honors where you are. It's manageable. And then try to make it a regular starting. So it has a rhythm to build. Because goodness knows when you start like that, you may not be doing your best work. You may not feel confident that you know it's the right direction, but it's the starting that opens up the cracks for the light that's in there to shine through. That's how it is. And you know, when we're in a place that's stuck, isn't that a most tender of places? It's usually because something big is trying to happen. And so I keep in mind that at those moments when I notice I'm stuck, to also begin a proper program of self-care. I need it. I'm talking about adequate sleep. I'm talking about proper nutrition. You know, like our nonprofit partner from a couple of months ago, the Series Project came here and taught us and our youth how to make nutrition-dense food, and how that doesn't have to be expensive, and it can be as fast as fast food, but healthier. And how it fuels our body, our soul, and our mind to be present for what's going on. And how about this? To keep good company. Because during those times, you know, we may not be our best self. So we put ourselves in an environment where there are people that can honor our journey. Like, you know, for example, join an empowerment group. Or the men go to the first Saturdays when the men of the center gather together. Or join the Spirit Creek Stewardship group to work together. Or, you know, go to the art show. Find a place to be in good company, where you are getting the messages of support around you all the time. And make balance between the various kingdoms in your world: work, play, relationship, creativity. And if those are not in balance, you know, you feel it. Like I said, when I'm stuck, I'm starting to get it. It's often because something is trying to happen, and whatever it is that is trying to happen, when I take care of myself, is one of the ways that I make the space for that something to happen. I mean, it's this simple. If I'm not rested, I'm just not my best self. And then, you know, God could even call me on the phone. I won't notice. It's just that simple. One of the places that I get stuck in also is when I think about the enormity of the whatever it is. When it's so big, I can't take it in, and I just go. Do you know that place? And I've been learning how to, in those moments, to really try and remind myself that big projects of huge scope always start somewhere with a mini step. It could be as small as opening the door on a trip from Santa Rosa to New York, you know. If I think about everything it takes to put it together, it's too much. It's gigantic. But the small steps, I try to remind myself of that, you know. You know, once I went to a basket weaving demonstration. I really did. And I loved it so very much because it's so, you're using your hands. But I found myself, as I was watching, wanting to weave a basket. But as I wanted to, I started to feel the overwhelm of the scope of it, everything that goes into it, getting the material and the detail and the learning and the technique and the soaking of the reed and on, until some point I just, felt it's too much. So I never did anything until one day I took a step and I went and contacted the suppliers of the cane. And there it was. It's all I needed to take the step. And right there I found it's like avenues opened up, like somebody turned on a light as the suppliers introduced me to other ways and these books and societies. And it's in that moment I remember that's how it is. Sometimes because I don't let myself experience the next part of the path. It's like I've got this lamp that I'm holding, and it's only shining on that much space, and I can't see the next part because I never step into it. So when I'm overwhelmed by the enormity of the task, I try to remember this. Lower the pressure on myself a little bit, and do the one thing that is before me to start with, and then let life provide the next and the next and the next step. Sometimes I get stuck because of my best friend, instant gratification. Maybe you know him. This idea that my timing is more perfect than the universe and I want it right now. And when I want to see the results too soon, that mindset can truly mess things up for me sometimes. So I'm learning to be more and more satisfied with whatever happens next. And to see it as best as I can as part of a sequence that's moving towards something. Because I'm noticing small bits of progress, small steps often lead me into a place where unexpected new options become available. I'm learning to trust more in what I'm building every day by just being alive and doing my spiritual work and taking it in. Early on when I began metaphysics and I learned how to pray, I was so amazed that this tool existed and that I loved it. And then something would go wrong in my life and I turned to prayer as fast as a hurricane, demanding of it that it fixed everything immediately. And now, I'm leaving the space open for that to be possible. But more reasonable now is that I've noticed that over time, since beginning then, with small prayer practice, classes, deepening, loving more, I've built prayer muscle so that now when stuff happens, I don't turn to prayer as a quick fix, but more as the thing that centers me in the creative light of the universe, my home that takes me home. And this way I'm noticing that a lot of what I consider to be the great accomplishments of my life, or a lot of what I see as the spiritual growth where my personality changed and moved out of the way for my love, and a lot of what I see as the big things in my life came with small step by step progress over time, with many mid-course corrections, times of feeling lost and rudderless, and times of questioning whether I'd made the right choice. And I look back now and all I can say is, thank God I started. If I was still waiting to start. Some success does come overnight, but mostly it comes step by step. About 5 years ago, I let myself get so out of shape by not having a good self-care program and not having proper balance between work and health that I couldn't even walk around Spring Lake without getting huffing and puffing. Do you know what I mean? That quickly. And so I thought about it and finally I got somebody, Mark, my running partner, and we started 5 years ago, and literally we would run for 1 minute and walk for 1 minute and run for 1 minute because that's all we could do. And now 5 years later, I think about I'm running twice a week around the lake with friends and, like little alpha, And, if you had spoken to me on that first puffing run torment around the park 5 years ago and said you'll be sprightly, I would probably not think good thoughts about you. That we started, and it was hard, and it brought up fear and self-judgment and confusion, but we started. And I'm trying to remember, lower the pressure and do the one thing that is before me right now to begin with, and then let life provide the next and the next and the next and the next step. It's one of the great ideas I learned at the center right here. It's as if when we take a step to reach out towards life, it's like a switch is thrown somewhere and it opens up this invisible agent, this inner engine. It's like a light is turned on. I mean, I can't prove this, but try it out for yourself. It's like a chain reaction. Take a step. Prove it for yourself. Explore it for yourself. See what happens when you lean into supporting yourself, getting unstuck with one step. And sometimes where I'm stuck is in the land of my projections about what it should be like. You have this thing in front of you to do, this big thing. And then you have at the same time your projections of how it should be when it's all worked out. And it's not that you shouldn't dream of a better future. It's more about how tightly are you holding on to the idea. There's another name for that. Control. And this can work against me. And can be the block that is in front of where the light is trying to shine through. And it takes a lot of energy to hold on to an imagined future. And when I'm feeling strongly attached to how I think things ought to be, I try to remember this. Lower the pressure, for heaven's sakes. And do the one thing that is in front of me to start with. Start there and then let life provide the next and the next and the next step. And be with that and be satisfied with that. And sometimes where I'm stuck in not knowing what the first step is. It's not that I won't take it, it's I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Or when to take it. It's not that I'm not a good student. It's just I'm not clear. And I cannot tell which direction is the one I should go in. And you know what I've learned in times like these? What's very important, whether you're a mother or an artist or a spiritual seeker or dealing with this or with that, this is a good time to press the pause button and don't do anything and ask for guidance. I've heard, it's a rumor, I've heard that men are notorious for not stopping to ask for directions. I know it's a stereotype, but it fits me perfectly. I will not. I will ride around in a circle forever. But, gentlemen, we have GPS systems now, so we don't have to stop. So there I am driving around somewhere, got my fancy GPS, and it's talking to me, and go this, turn, and then it says, you have arrived at your destination on the left, but there's nothing there. It's a bush. Do you know that I would not get out of the car and go ask? And I was laughing at myself. I would sit there and stare at the bush. I even thought of driving where there was clearly no access. And it got me to thinking about that place of being stuck and how powerful willpower can be to get us to move through things. But that willpower without inner guidance and softened by wisdom, it's potentially hazardous. There are a number of ways you can access guidance. I mean, for heaven's sake, you can start with outside guidance systems. You can even ask your friends, but there's another kind of guidance that we are very interested in here. We teach it in our adult classes, and we teach people to ask for the guidance from the light that is within them. We call it visioning, and it's more like opening to something that already exists inside. It's reminding me of the book, the recommended book of the Creative Life, in which he talks about the beginning of creation as a metaphor, and that part in the Bible where it says, and then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And he talks about how light has always been a symbol for illumination, for wisdom, for guidance. You know, think about a flashlight in a dark room that when it's turned on, things that before were hidden now become available because the light is on them. And when we are stuck, life can feel like a journey through a dark room, looking for the light, the next teacher, the next great this, the next relationship, the next something. And the most powerful reminder I got from the book is this, that the illumination that we seek in that moment is within ourselves. And every time we wake up a little bit more to that, that's a new beginning. Indeed, the words in the beginning, he says, refer to those moments when we wake up, the flashlight is turned on, and we see a little bit more of the path. And we let the light shine through from us. You know, sometimes I get stuck because it's all just too much. You know, too much mental stimulation, too much emotional stimulation, too much sensory overload, and it's coming from everywhere. And a lot of it's coming from right inside, from above, and from this side, and from that side. And then it's exhausting, and the thought of doing one more thing is too much. Even prayer. You know what I'm talking about. Here are the things that I do, and you probably can think of a few of yourself. Here's what I do to address it. Great idea. Take a whole day, sunrise to sunset, without words. No words. No email. No phone. No conversation. No television. No reading. Not even the instructions on how to make lunch. Oh, if you can do that, if it's possible for you to do that, it's the most luxurious thing you can do for yourself, to disengage that part of your mind and see what comes out instead. Or here's another one. Take 2 hours to do nothing, but you've got to do it properly. In other words, you can't do it when you're tired. You'll just fall asleep. Here's how I do it. I get the 2 hours peak of the day, you know, and sit down comfortably. I like to lie down on the floor. Hardwood floor, I love it. Pillow under the knees, lie there. And then you do nothing. Other than allow yourselves to follow the train of your own thought as it passes by through your mind. And if you find it's too busy in there, you try this. As you breathe in, you affirm in your mind, God is. And you pause. And as you breathe out, you affirm, I am. And you pause. It's actually an exercise that's recommended in this book, and I offer it to you today as our spiritual practice together. Listen to these words. Light is an eternal reality with no beginning and no end. So the phrase, let there be light, is not the creation of light back then in time. It is instead our focusing of the light